NewsX World. But now we move from the east of Russia further west, as the Kremlin has said that it did not anticipate breakthroughs from the latest round of Russia-Ukraine talks held in Istanbul. Speaking to journalists, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that a breakthrough was hardly possible. Meanwhile, Russian media has also reported that the Kremlin has said that it remains difficult to envision a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky before the end of August. The Kremlin has also reportedly stated that Russian forces are focused on establishing what it calls buffer zones along the Ukrainian border. On the other hand, Russian authorities have confirmed that 2 women were killed from debris of a downed unmanned aerial vehicle that fell in the Adler district of Sochi. That, according to the Krasnodar region governor Venemian Konradiev. The governor also stated that 11 people were injured, 4 of whom required hospitalization. This comes after Ukraine said that Russia also launched heavy strikes on Odessa, targeting seaports, transport hubs and residential zones. While joining us to discuss these comments from the Kremlin, but also these strikes, Mark Sutherland, a geopolitical commentator, joining us live from London. Mark, as always, thank you for joining us on the programme. Let's first look at these comments from Russia, saying that they didn't expect any major progress in these third rounds. They say that they don't think a meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin is likely by the end of next month. Where do you think the Russian mentality and the Kremlin's mentality currently sits after a third round of talks that have ultimately led to no further gains in terms of a ceasefire?
Joshua, good to be with you. So they met in Istanbul within 45 minutes. The only thing, sadly, that was achieved was to look at prisoner swaps and how that could be worked out in regard to injured forces on both sides, etc. Then within hours after that discussion, then as you just reported, that drone attacks are then happen on both sides. Then they're turning around and saying, well, hopefully, we can meet in August, and then Russia are saying no. We have got to get these people to the table longer than 45 minutes to actually end this conflict. Now, there is brinkmanship potentially going on both sides, because as we've said before, discussed before, the Americans are then saying to Zelensky, we will, the Ukraine, NATO, you can buy these arms, hand them over to the Ukrainians in regard to defending themselves against Russian aggression. You then can argue that Russia is stalling to turn around and say, right, we want as much of a buffer zone, much of a land within the Ukraine, because it goes back to Crimea, the Donbass, it goes back to Russian speaking people on that border. It's complex, particularly since 2014. The other thing is, Joshua, is that they're most probably thinking, or Putin may be thinking, that Donald Trump is distracted by internal things. Also, his mind is on what's happening in the Middle East as well, because Donald Trump said, as soon as he came in, he could end this within days. Well, sadly, that hasn't happened, but we all want this to happen. It's very difficult to get within the minds of Putin, but also let's just remind ourselves that within 2 weeks after the Russian invasion, there was a peace plan on the table. Boris Johnson, the ex-prime minister of this country, flies out to then say no. There are wheels within wheels that are deeply, deeply complex, that you and I need many, many hours to sit down and discuss. And I'll just end this by saying, we want it to end, and we're like dragging people to the table. The other big issue is we just wonder what's happening with the Russian economy. We wonder if what's happening, is he able to keep his armies together, etc., etc. So there are a lot of factors, my friend.
Absolutely, many factors that, of course, will be continued to be points of discussion here on NewsX World. Mark, thank you for those insights. You will be staying with us and joining us later in the programme, but staying generally on the topic, but looking at Hungary.